The rudder on a ship, you turn it left and the ship goes right. This rudder on an airplane does not turn the airplane. What turns the airplane is to tilt. But if you tilt and don't control the back rudder, then you will spiral into the ground. You have to turn the rudder, and you have to turn it the wrong way. You tilt this way, you turn the rudder backwards so that you are held in line. It's part of this three-dimensional dynamic balance that the Wright brothers seem to understand more than anybody else. That's the way it is with us. We are called to follow God. And yet we get out of whack. You know, there's always somebody who's got an answer. I always have an answer. I always have a vision. I always have something that I think would be great. And one of the problems is I think it'd be great so much that I want you all to love and adore me and put me up on a pedestal. The people were doing the same thing with John. They said, well, aren't you the Messiah? You've got the answer. The world is coming apart. God is coming in. Aren't you the one? And he said, no. He was breaking what would be intuitively the right answer. I mean, they're going to make you boss. You want to be boss. He said, no, not me, but the one who's coming. And that is the genius of the church. And the genius of a preacher who understands the good news. It's not about me. It's not about you in particular. It's about Christ working in us and working through us and going far beyond anything we might do. We are not worthy to stoop down. Okay, can you imagine stooping down to untie sandals? Must be the lowest job. It's just before you wash feet. Lowest job in the world. And John says, I'm not worthy of the lowest job in the world when it comes to the Christ. We are not worthy of the lowest job in the world, and yet God calls us to be His presence in the world. To be doing ordinary things and living God's promise in everything we do. What can we do? The people asked John, what can we do to be ready for the coming of the Lord? Well, if you've got plenty, and you know someone who's got not so plenty, share. Isn't that obvious? And yet we get so tied up in our things that we sometimes forget, I often forget. And I think it's the things that make me happy. And when I found out, and I forget, but I found out, it's giving away stuff to those who need it. It's giving away love that fills my heart with love. Tax collectors, don't take more than your fair share. Same for us. Don't get so caught up in what you're doing that you want to win at all costs. Soldiers, don't use your power to extort money. We as humans confuse power and love. And once we turn to power, then we have the power to do what we please. And then we turn around and hurt others. It's just the golden rule. Do to others what you would like to have done to you. Don't do to others. Don't do to anyone anything you wouldn't like happening to you. It's that simple. And yet it creates a life of dynamic balance, because while we have to take care of ourselves, we have to eat, we have to get what we can get to live on, and yet we balance it by giving to the Lord and giving to those in need, the least of these. In 1903, the pressure was on. Samuel Langley up in Washington, D.C. had already tried to fly his aerodrome. it crashed. But he was going to fly it again on December 8th. And if the Wright brothers were going to get off the ground and get credit for it, they had to do it before then, in case it flew. But one thing led to another. There was wind, there wasn't enough wind, there was rain, there was sea storms coming in. And the 8th came and went. They got a telegram from home that Langley's flight had crashed into the Potomac River. He had not succeeded in discovering flight. But one thing after another, finally it was the 16th was a Sunday, and being the sons of a bishop, they, in the Brethren Church, they took the day off. And then on the 17th, they got out their little runway, which was a 2x4s laid in a line, and they set the glider up, the airplane up. They fired up the engine and went down the track, and it hopped up off the track and back down just a few seconds. Second one went about 100 feet. Third flight, they got it up, bounced a little bit, didn't hit the ground, but just bouncing, then actually soared a little bit. 852 feet. They had gone farther than 500 feet, kind of a minimum, you'd say. It had left the ground by its own power, and they were in full control. They discovered flight. They wrote home a telegram, and then their sister gave it to the guy in the newspaper office, explaining that they had discovered the secret of flight and would be home before Christmas. The newspaper ran, Wright Brothers home by Christmas. People didn't notice. People didn't believe it. There were people in other places doing the same sort of thing. In Europe, there was quite a aeronautical society going on, and a lot of them thought that the Wright brothers were just blowing smoke. In an article in 1906 in the Paris edition of the New York Herald, it says, "Flyers or liars? Anyone can say they fly. Either you haven't, either you've flown or you haven't flown. Either you have a machine or you don't have a machine. It's easy to talk. It's a lot harder to do." The Wright brothers took those 3 or 4 years, to learn how to fly, to improve their flyer, and to spend time flying around a field called Hoffman's Prairie in the Dayton area to learn how to do it. And so finally Wilbur went over to France, and he flew in this air show. Now he didn't stay up very long, almost a couple of minutes, but he made a left turn and a right turn, and he circled. And in later flights, he was flying figure eights, and the people were amazed at the control. This was not about getting off the ground. It was about having control. And the Wright brothers knew where the control was. It was in dynamic balance. John knows. It's about a dynamic balance of our lives. Christ is coming. Now John makes it pretty scary. He's going to come and he's going to chop the bad trees down because they did not provide the fruit. Either you are living Christ or you're not. Either you possess the Holy Spirit in everything you do or you do not. We'd like to pretend that we can just be good enough to fool people most of the time. I know. But what John is calling for and what Christ is calling for is that we live this joyously every single day in everything we do. In the little things. We follow Christ. We live in that balance. And God will lift us. God will lift us to new heights. And God will be in control. Thanks be to God.